Welcome to the Nutritious and Delicious podcast with me, Bethany. Our mission is to support busy parents all over the world to help you with time management while taking care of your nutritional, physical, and mental health. After all, a healthy family starts with a healthy parent. So I'm so excited today. I have Melissa here with me, and Melissa is a wife and she's a mom of two. She's a holistic life coach and she helps busy moms break free from sugar without actually feeling deprived. So you can be happy, healthy, and in love with your life. So, welcome, Melissa. I'm so incredibly grateful to have you on the show today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, Bethany.
Yeah. So, our episode today, I'm really looking forward to this one actually, because this is about your story of breaking free from sugar cravings and your incredible mindset to actually have helped you lose 25 pounds. And this is actually something amazing that a lot of people are looking for. So I'd love for you to kind of start us off here, sharing a little bit about your story, what's happened for you, and where you are today and kind of your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody that knew me from childhood is shocked that I'm doing this because I was an 8-year-old little girl who was hiding food in my room, specifically candy, Pop-Tarts, cookies, candy. So it started in childhood and carried through life, and eventually got married and had children and was using sugar to soothe and numb and kind of handle feeling overwhelmed and exhausted. And realized, you know what, something needs to change here. Our son was a newborn. He wasn't sleeping through the night. So I was eating sleeves of Oreos to try to give myself energy and just feel somewhat present. We also had our 2-year-old daughter who had some sensory challenges and some undiagnosed food allergies. My husband was traveling for work. And on top of all that, Bethany, I had also just gotten diagnosed with PTSD from childhood trauma. So really kind of unpacking all of that is what started me on my journey and made me realize, okay, I'm using sugar to soothe, to numb, to buffer, and it's not healthy.
Right.
And I don't want to set that example for my kids.
Yeah, that's tough. I think a lot of people use something at least as a crutch. So kind of for yourself, how did you know you were actually addicted to the sugar itself? Like what was something that was coming up for you where you finally noticed it?
I didn't think much of it, honestly, because it was how I grew up. I think, having lost my dad when I was 2, that's part of my trauma. My mom used sugar to kind of soothe her feelings, so it was just modeled for me. So when I got my PTSD diagnosis, I went to a naturopath and she tested all my vitamins and minerals, and they were not in a good place, as you can imagine. And just kind of talking through, well, what are you eating? And what does your day look like? And I was getting no nutritional value. It was diet soda and carbs and candy because it was fat-free. I thought I was healthy.
Right.
And when you kind of look at it that way, you're like, wait, all I'm eating is sugar. Oh my gosh, like what is going on here?
And sugar is, as most of people know, is that it's empty calories, right? And it gives us a quick rush in feeling good, basically. And that's why most people are addicted to it, because it works on the same pathways in the brain of things that make you addicted to things. So it's kind of a trick in the body, unfortunately. And then yes, when you kind of look towards that, most of the time you are nutritionally deficient because it actually takes a lot of your own vitamins and minerals to process that sugar. So you're actually depleting whatever you have. So even if you are, trying to eat like a really healthy diet, maybe you're taking lots of supplements, but you're eating such a big sugary diet. It's almost like going to the gym and then like eating a pizza after. Like it's just counterintuitive, right? Like some people could say like, oh, well, I eat really healthy in general, but then I have such an addiction to like M&Ms or whatever it is, right? Like again, it's that notion of going to the gym and then saying like, I did a really good workout, so now I'm going to go have like a milkshake or something. And it just kind of blows the lid off what you're supposed to be actually kind of doing for yourself. So what kind of was your breaking point? Where did you get to where you're like, oh, I've like had enough of this. Like I've seen a pattern over and over again. I'm not breaking free of this. Like what actually sort of helped you see a breaking point for yourself?
It wasn't really about me or the weight. It was about what I was showing my kids and how I was showing up.
Okay.
And I was riding that blood sugar roller coaster. My moods were all over the place. I'd be really happy and then I'd be really angry because somebody spilled their juice or whatever. I mean, it was And I'm like, this isn't the mom I want to be. This isn't who my kids need me to be. So that was really kind of my breaking point. And then what's really interesting, Bethany, is after I learned about Whole Foods and, doing the work of habit change around food. Yeah, I lost weight and that was great, but I felt more energetic. My brain fog was gone. I felt more alive. I had better moods. I was happy. I was healthy. Like, it was a total shift for me. And I think what was so frustrating is everybody was like, oh my gosh, you look great. You've lost weight. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but that's not what this is about. This is about me getting my life and my health back, because I broke free from this toxin that's legal and socially acceptable.
Yeah, that's the thing. We have it in our society where it's put in like a lot of products, right? And people be surprised how much sugar they actually eat on a regular basis. A lot of people say like, well, I don't eat sugar, like, because they think they don't eat candy, they don't eat chocolate, they don't eat, whatever, I guess is around, sort of like baking and things like that. But it's in a lot of our food. So if you actually look at like your cereal, your breads, your pasta, they have still got sugar in them, and you're adding that up throughout your day and wondering why you're maybe like your blood sugar's crashing after a meal. Like a example would be like white bread, white pasta, white rice. It spikes, your blood sugar levels, and people are wondering like why they have no energy afterwards, right? Because it's a big hit of sugar, and there's no fiber or anything like that in these products to actually help level that out. And that's where I think a lot of people kind of have misinformation. I think where a lot of people sort of ask like, well, that's great, you lost 25 pounds, like, people sort of get stuck in this, but I don't know how she did it. Like, I don't know how, like, she had the mindset and I don't. Like, so if we can kind of walk through a little bit of that, like, what was your mindset before coming off sugar versus sort of like after sugar? Because there's obviously got to be something there that you're telling yourself in order to stop yourself from going for it, right?
Yeah. And I love that you're bringing that up, because mindset is like the missing piece, right? And so for me, like, I used to laugh at people that were healthy and ate Whole Foods. I used to, make fun of them and call them granola and earthy hippies. And it was terrible. I was so judgmental, not only towards them, but myself. And so I feel like when I had this, kind of awareness, it caused me to become aware of, okay, well, how is food impacting me? And it was just this level of self-awareness I had never had. I was just trained that we eat, we go through the motions, and you might have energy, you might feel bad, you might not. Like, there was no connecting the dots. So for me, it was really kind of becoming aware of how food impacted me, how it, affected my life, how I showed up, and that sort of thing. So I think that was the first thing. And then once I had that awareness, it was like, oh my gosh, like, I want to show up as the best version of myself. I want to, nourish my body because it does all these things for me, not because I hate it or I'm punishing it, but I really want to nourish it and take care of it because it does so much for me. So it was a complete mindset shift. And I think part of that was judgment, because I had had so much judgment towards myself and my body and hating it and not loving it and appreciating it. And that shifted. So now I don't judge those people anymore. And I'm sorry that I did that.
Well, we have to go through some big, I think, lessons sometimes. And it's interesting because you brought up a couple things. So you talked about awareness, and that's a big one. So that's the first thing I usually tell my clients too, is that when you kind of start realizing why you haven't met, like, say, a goal, like, most people come to me asking to lose weight. And typically it's like, okay, well, you've done a lot of steps to get yourself to this place anyways. Now we have to sort of start undoing them. And people think it's a physical thing, and it's not. The physical aspect, yes, makes up probably about 20% of what you're actually doing, but 80% of it is like the tapes that you're playing in your head. Maybe your why isn't strong enough, or you haven't found your why. And again, what you just said, most people are kind of on autopilot and going through the motions and not really understanding, and they're just doing it because that's what they know, or that's what they have grown up like, and you don't know any different, right? And you don't see it as something that's not beneficial for yourself. So that's usually where I like to start clients with, is looking at sort of like, hear yourself talking. It's really great to hear somebody else kind of relay it back to you, because as people start talking, you start listening and saying like, did you hear that you just kind of said this through that conversation? And they're like, really? So it's kind of like that mirror reflection. And I think when people start to become aware of what they're saying or how they're feeling, it starts to reflect in their actions. So as you started to see kind of what was happening in your body and you started to feel better, you're like, okay, well, I actually start to feel better at myself. And I think the judgment sort of started to kind of come away, right? And as that judgment started to peel away, I think you started to kind of go into this more and like, okay, maybe this side of the fence isn't so bad, like being a granola hippie. But, like I'm actually feeling really good, and I think that really helps people get to the other side. Because people always ask, like, what's the key? Like, what's the fix? Like, what is it that helps people lose, and it's honestly, you've got to change your thoughts. And those feelings will start to change about yourself and other people, like you just said, and you have more compassion for other people and what they choose to do. And I think once that sort of starts to come away, your actions start to change. Because as we all know, thoughts and feelings create our actions. And if you're in a very negative mindset, you're going to create the wrong ones, even if you don't want to, right? So you kind of have yourself on this journey, right? So
and I think too, a part of that is the belief, right? Like the belief creates the thought, which creates the action. So what are our beliefs about food? And like, what do we believe? And for me, I didn't have any concept that it could have such an impact until I experienced it myself. And I think that's where the judgment came from.
Right. A lot of people, I find food can be used in a variety of ways of belief systems. So a few people can say like, it's like food is nourishing, it's a de-stressor. Some people say like food is rewarding because if you kind of look back to your childhood too, like how was food sort of introduced to you? Was it a punishment form, like you had to sit and eat your food until like what we call the clean plate dinner club or whatever, is where you're forced to basically eat everything off your plate, even if you're not hungry, and you start to sort of despise food or feel that it's a punishment, or sometimes gaining weight for people is a sense of security. Like there's so many things that can go with food. And other people don't understand that because they're maybe on the other side of it, right? Some people, like there's the opposite side of some people deprive themselves of things because they don't feel that they deserve it. Or some people overindulge because they don't feel good about themselves, or they feel isolated. There's a lot of feelings that can go around it. So food has a lot of triggers around people with their emotions and stuff. So I'm really glad that you were able to get through this. And the other aspect I was going to ask you too is because a lot of people do this where they go into sort of like a sugar detox and they'll go into it really hard. They'll come off sugar, they'll lose a lot of weight, and then they gain a whole bunch of weight back. So having worked in the diet industry and seen people kind of come off sugar and go into like really low calorie diets, which messed people up, honestly. A lot of people, I'd say like a good 80%, 90% of people rebounded in a lot of weight because they never had sort of the change in mindset or the tools to help them long term. Can you kind of give some of the, I guess, tools around how have you sort of kept that mindset going and that keeping that weight off? Like what keeps you in that mode of wanting to stay where you are now versus going back and doing old behaviors?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of factors in that. I think that part of it is that I just view myself and my relationship with myself and my body and food totally differently. I think it was really, I don't want to say broken, but it wasn't healthy. It wasn't in a good place. And so I had to do a lot of inner work around that to really kind of learn to appreciate my body for what it's done and really be kind and compassionate towards it instead of judgmental. And along the lines of that, really kind of evaluating what is my relationship with food? Why is it this way? And what do I want it to look like? So I think that was, some of the foundational work that needed to happen. And then I think as you make those changes and you feel amazing and you kind of start to like showing up that way, you don't want to go back to where you were.
Right. Yeah. That's a very good thing, I think, for a lot of people to hear, because I think when people do things too fast, they're not really listening to the tapes and the belief systems, and they're kind of just running through it in the physical aspect. And I think what it sounds like, you did a lot of inner work to get you to that place where I think you'd already decided like the dropping the weight was like a bonus to you. It wasn't the focus. And I love that about your story, because so many people have the opposite. They focus on the weight, and maybe they go up 2 pounds and they've been eating really healthy, because all of a sudden like their water weight has stabled and they've gone up a little bit. And like, it's like, oh, well, like I've just basically ruined everything and it's all like thrown out the window. Right there, that tape is that you haven't learned that your whole process of like what you've done and what you've accomplished. And like you just said, that person in that other aspect isn't giving themselves the compassion or the empathy or anything like that. And whereas you were kind of nurturing yourself. So I love that about your story. And I think I really hope that people listen to this, because I think people aren't really understanding. It's not focusing on the weight. It's focusing on like the inner critic, the inner child, the person that you want to nurture and make sure that this person's going to get through it and the weight will come off because you're actually helping yourself. So I love that. So do you have any personal advice for people out there struggling right now with sugar cravings? Because I know there's a lot of people out there, especially with what's going on. A lot of people, their mindset has sort of gone in the toilet because it feels like they don't have a lot of control in their life. So it's like, therefore, they kind of, again, go to sugar and things that aren't good for them at all. So kind of what would be some advice if you could talk to somebody in, like, if they were in the room right now?
Yeah, I would love for you to replace judgment with curiosity. So maybe if you realize, hey, I'm eating a lot of sugar, okay, instead of going and beating yourself up and doing that downward spiral that we can sometimes do, pause and ask yourself, what am I looking for in this moment? Because a lot of times maybe we're craving something sweet in our life that we don't even know is missing, but we think that we need sugar because we're lacking sweetness in another area. So I would just encourage you to replace judgment with curiosity and ask yourself what you're really looking for, because that can be powerful instead of just going on autopilot.
Exactly. That's amazing. I love that. So like, I think there's a lot of good words of wisdom in here for people. And I think sometimes, like, when people don't understand, they need to let it sink in. They need to listen to this over and over again. So it was a pleasure having you on, and I'm really excited to like use this for myself and through, you know, helping women as well, because I think a lot of it starts with our self-belief and our own feelings and thoughts and how we treat ourselves in order to be able to keep that weight off, lose that weight, like everything, right? Like, I love this. So how can our viewers connect with you today and learn more about these tips with you? So.
Yeah, my website is free2bcoaching.com. So free2bcoaching.com. On Facebook, I'm Happy Healthy Mama Melissa Rolfs, and Instagram, free2be_coaching.
Lovely. And we actually have a sugar cravings guide link as well for you. So we will add that to the show notes. So I'm super excited. So once again, it was a pleasure having you on, Melissa, to the Nutritious and Delicious podcast. So thank you.
Thank you, Bethany. It was awesome. I love the conversation.
Awesome.